It is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not fight to win. In fact, to many people, it looks weak, strange, even foolish. And yet heaven smiles upon it. We live in a world that celebrates power. We admire the strong, the confident, the victorious. We are told to protect ourselves, promote ourselves, and never let anyone take advantage of us. Love in our time often means attraction, benefit, or emotional excitement. If it feels good, it must be love. If it costs nothing, it must be safe. But there is another kind of love, a love that costs everything. It is the love that forgives when revenge feels justified. It is the love that stays when leaving would be easier. It is the love that gives without asking what it will receive. To the world, this love is strange. Why would someone forgive a deep betrayal? Why would someone serve quietly without recognition? Why would someone remain faithful when no one seems to notice? Because this love does not come from the world, it comes from God. When we read the life of Jesus Christ, we see a love that defies human logic. He washed the feet of his followers. He prayed for those who hated him. He chose sacrifice over safety. By every worldly measure, it looked like loss. But in heaven's eyes, it was victory. The strange love God approves is not weak. It is powerful in a deeper way. It breaks cycles of hatred. It softens hard hearts. It transforms enemies into friends. The world says, protect yourself. God says, give yourself. The world says, win at any cost. God says, love at any cost. This love is not blind. It sees the flaws in others clearly. It knows the pain. It feels the injustice. But it chooses mercy anyway, not because wrong becomes right, but because grace is stronger than revenge. Many people misunderstand this love. They think it means allowing evil or ignoring truth. But true love never celebrates wrong. It speaks truth gently. It corrects with patience. It stands firm without hatred. Imagine a marriage where both partners choose this strange love, choosing forgiveness over pride. Imagine friendships built on patience instead of competition. Imagine a community where people serve without demanding applause. It would look unusual. It would look almost unnatural. And that is precisely the point. For this love is not natural to fallen humanity. It must be planted by God. It must be nurtured through humility. It grows quietly in prayer and surrender. There is a reason why such love feels difficult. It requires dying to self, to ego, to pride, to the constant need to be right. And dying is never comfortable. But something remarkable happens when we practice this strange love. We become free, free from bitterness, free from constant comparison, free from the exhausting race to prove ourselves. In loving this way, we reflect the heart of God, not the image of power the world worships, but the deeper power of sacrificial goodness. Consider history. Movements of true change were often born not from anger alone, but from courageous love. Love that endured suffering without becoming cruel. Love that refused to mirror hatred. Such love is not sentimental. It is disciplined. It is intentional. It chooses daily to act with kindness, even when feelings resist. And yes, it will sometimes be misunderstood. People may call you naive. They may say you are too soft. They may warn you that you will be hurt. And perhaps you will be. But love that never risks pain is not love at all. It is merely self-protection, wearing a polite mask. The strange love God approves is not safe, but it is sacred. It does not shout. It does not parade itself. It works quietly in unseen corners of life, in the parent who wakes at night, in the friend who listens patiently, in the believer who prays for someone who will never know. Heaven measures greatness differently. What seems small to the world may echo loudly in eternity. So when you feel the pull to forgive again, to serve again, to choose patience again, even when it feels foolish, remember this. You are not acting strangely in the eyes of God. You are acting beautifully. And one day, when all hidden things are revealed, the love that looked weak will be shown as the strongest force of all. There is a kind of love that does not begin with feelings, and it does not survive on excitement. It begins with a decision, and it survives on surrender. When we say that strange love is sacrificial love, we are speaking of something far deeper than romance or affection. We are speaking of a love that gives when it would be easier to keep, that serves when it would be more comfortable to sit, and that remains faithful when walking away would bring relief. This love is not admired by the world because it does not sparkle with self-promotion. It does not announce its own virtue. It simply chooses again and again to place another's good above its own comfort. And that is why it appears strange. In a culture that urges us to protect our time, guard our energy, and prioritize our happiness, sacrificial love feels almost unreasonable. Why should I give when I receive nothing in return? Why should I forgive when I have every right to be angry? Why should I stay committed when no one applauds my loyalty? The answer does not lie in human logic, it lies in the heart of God. When we look at the life of Jesus Christ, we see love that moves toward need rather than away from it. He did not wait for people to become worthy before caring for them. He did not measure his kindness according to their gratitude. He gave because giving was his nature. This is the pattern of sacrificial love. It is not controlled by the behavior of others. It flows from a transformed heart. Such love is costly. It costs pride because it requires humility. It costs time because it demands attention. It costs comfort because it often calls us into inconvenient places. A parent who wakes in the night to comfort a crying child understands this cost. A friend who listens patiently to the same struggle again and again understands this cost. A spouse who chooses forgiveness over bitterness understands this cost. Yet in each of these hidden sacrifices, something sacred is happening. The soul is being shaped into something stronger and more beautiful than self-centered desire could ever produce. The world fears sacrifice because it equates loss with defeat. But in God's economy, sacrifice is not loss, it is transformation. A seed must fall into the ground and give itself up before it becomes something greater. In the same way, when we surrender our need to always win, always be right, always be comfortable, we discover a deeper strength forming within us. Sacrificial love does not mean allowing injustice to flourish or pretending that pain does not hurt. It means choosing to respond to pain without becoming hardened by it. It means that even when we set boundaries, we do so without hatred. Even when we speak truth, we do so without cruelty. This kind of love requires courage because it risks misunderstanding. Others may see your patience as weakness. They may mistake your kindness for naivety. They may wonder why you continue to give when you could demand more. But sacrificial love is not concerned with appearances. It is concerned with faithfulness. It asks not, how will this make me look? But is this aligned with the heart of God? There is freedom hidden inside this way of loving. When we love only those who reward us, we become dependent on their response. Our peace rises and falls with their approval. But when we love sacrificially, we are anchored in something steadier. We give because it is right, not because it is returned. We forgive because it is holy, not because it is deserved. In doing so, we step out of the exhausting cycle of keeping score. We no longer measure every action in terms of personal gain. We become free to love generously. This does not happen naturally. Left to ourselves, we drift towards self-protection. We build walls. We calculate risks. We guard our hearts carefully. Sacrificial love requires divine help because it goes against our instinct for self-preservation. It is formed slowly through prayer, humility, and daily choices that often go unseen. Yet it is precisely these unseen choices that heaven treasures. A quiet act of patience may never trend on social media. A private decision to forgive may never be celebrated publicly. But God sees what is done in secret, and he approves the love that mirrors his own giving heart. The strange love that sacrifices comfort for compassion, pride for humility, and revenge for mercy may look foolish in a competitive world, but it carries a quiet power that reshapes families, friendships, and communities. It interrupts cycles of anger. It heals wounds that argument cannot fix. It plants seeds of trust where suspicion once grew. In the end, Sacrificial love is not about losing yourself. It is about finding your truest self, for we were not created merely to protect and promote our own interests. We were created to reflect divine goodness, and when we choose to give even when it costs us, we participate in something eternal. The world may call it strange, but God calls it beautiful. Forgiveness is often mistaken for weakness because it does not look like victory in the way the world defines it. When someone hurts us, something deep inside demands balance. We want justice, we want acknowledgement, and if we are honest, we sometimes want the other person to feel the weight of what they have done. Revenge feels powerful because it promises control. Bitterness feels protective because it convinces us we will not be hurt again. Yet the strange truth is that holding on to resentment does not strengthen us, it chains us. It ties our peace to a past moment and keeps our hearts circling the same wound. Forgiveness, on the other hand, appears fragile. It releases the right to strike back. It loosens the grip on the story we keep replaying. It chooses to step out of the courtroom of our own making. To the watching world, this can seem like surrender, but it is not surrender to injustice. It is surrender to God. It is trusting that He sees clearly and judges rightly. When we consider the life of Jesus Christ, we find forgiveness displayed in its purest and most unsettling form. He forgave not when it was convenient, not when apologies were eloquent, but in the midst of pain and rejection. This was not passive acceptance of wrong. It was active mercy. It was the strength to refuse hatred even when hatred seemed justified. Such forgiveness does not erase consequences, nor does it pretend that evil is harmless. Rather, it refuses to let evil shape the heart of the one who has been wounded. Forgiveness says, "You hurt me, but I will not allow that hurt to define who I become." There is immense power in that decision. Bitterness can feel like armor, but it is heavy armor. It exhausts the soul. It demands constant rehearsal of the offense to keep the anger alive. Forgiveness removes that armor, not because the battle was unreal, but because carrying it forever would slowly crush the spirit. Some fear that forgiving means excusing the offense. It does not. To forgive is not to say it did not matter. It is to say it mattered greatly, but I release my claim to personal revenge. It is placing justice into hands wiser than our own. That act requires courage. It requires humility. It requires trust that goodness is stronger than retaliation. The strong person is not the one who can shout the loudest or strike the hardest. The strong person is the one who can absorb pain without becoming cruel. This strength is not loud, it is steady. It does not flare up quickly, nor does it fade when feelings shift. It is rooted in something deeper than emotion. Forgiveness is often a process rather than a single moment. The decision may be made in one prayer, but the feelings may return many times. Each return is an invitation to choose again. This repeated choosing builds spiritual muscle. It trains the heart away from vengeance and toward mercy, and in that training, we begin to resemble the character of God more than the patterns of the world. The world teaches us to protect our pride at all costs. If someone disrespects us, we must respond quickly and sharply. If someone betrays us, we must cut them off without reflection. There are moments when boundaries are wise and necessary, but boundaries formed in anger are different from boundaries formed in peace. Forgiveness allows us to create healthy limits without hatred poisoning them. It clears the air within our own souls so that even if a relationship changes, our heart remains uncorrupted. There is also a freedom hidden inside forgiveness. As long as we cling to resentment, the person who hurt us continues to occupy space in our thoughts and emotions. We may believe we are punishing them with our anger, but often we are only imprisoning ourselves. When we forgive, we unlock the cell from the inside. We step into fresh air. We reclaim our ability to move forward without dragging the past behind us. This freedom does not deny the scar, it simply refuses to reopen the wound daily. Forgiveness also has the power to interrupt cycles of harm. When hurt is met with hurt, the chain extends. When insult is met with insult, division deepens. But when hurt is met with mercy, something unexpected happens. The cycle is disrupted. The story changes direction. Even if the other person does not respond with repentance, the one who forgives has already chosen a higher path. That choice shapes character in ways that comfort never could. Strength is often measured by dominance, but divine strength is measured by restraint. It is the ability to hold power and choose mercy. It is the courage to absorb an offense without allowing it to breed contempt. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting wisdom or ignoring patterns of harm. It means that even as we protect ourselves wisely, we refuse to cultivate hatred. In the quiet places of the heart, where anger once took root, forgiveness plants something gentler but far more enduring. It plants peace. The world may never applaud such strength. It may misunderstand it entirely, yet heaven sees it clearly. To forgive when revenge feels justified is to mirror the mercy we ourselves depend upon, and in doing so we discover that what seemed weak is in fact one of the strongest acts a human soul can perform. Love that refuses to speak truth is not love at all. But neither is truth that delights in harshness. The world often separates these two, as if we must choose between being honest and being kind. Some pride themselves on telling it like it is, even if their words wound unnecessarily. Others avoid difficult conversations altogether, believing that silence preserves peace. Yet genuine love walks a narrower path. It dares to speak what is true, but it does so with a spirit shaped by grace. This balance is not natural to us. Left to ourselves, we drift toward one extreme or the other. We either sharpen truth into a weapon or soften love into mere approval. But the strange love God approves refuses both distortions. It understands that truth without grace crushes, and grace without truth corrodes. When we look at the life of Jesus Christ, we see this harmony embodied. He did not flatter wrongdoing, nor did he humiliate the broken. When he confronted hypocrisy, his words were firm, yet they were never motivated by pride. When he encountered weakness, his compassion did not deny reality. It offered restoration. This is the pattern we are invited to follow. To speak truth with grace requires humility, because it demands that we examine our motives before we open our mouths. Are we correcting to help or correcting to win? Are we speaking because silence would harm, or because we enjoy proving ourselves right? Love purifies intention. It slows us down. It asks whether our words will build up or merely tear down. There are moments when truth is uncomfortable, when it unsettles relationships, when it risks misunderstanding, yet avoiding truth for the sake of temporary comfort often leads to deeper pain later. A friend who sees another drifting toward destruction and says nothing is not protecting the friendship, they are neglecting it. But the manner of correction matters as much as the correction itself. Words delivered in anger may contain facts, yet still fail to reflect love. Tone can wound even when content is accurate. Grace shapes not only what we say, but how we say it. It tempers urgency with patience. It replaces sarcasm with sincerity. It removes contempt from correction. Speaking truth with grace also requires courage. It is easier to remain silent when honesty might cost approval. It is easier to nod along with popular opinion than to gently disagree. Yet love is not governed by fear of rejection. It is anchored in a deeper allegiance to what is right. Still, that courage must be clothed in kindness. Boldness without compassion becomes aggression. Compassion without boldness becomes compromise. The union of both creates something rare and beautiful. Consider how often conflicts escalate, not because truth was spoken, but because it was spoken carelessly. A harsh word invites a harsher reply. Pride meets pride, and the conversation becomes a contest. But when truth is offered gently, even difficult matters can be addressed without destroying dignity. Grace does not dilute conviction. It dignifies the listener. It recognizes that every person, even when wrong, bears the image of God and deserves to be treated accordingly. This perspective transforms confrontation from attack into invitation. It invites growth rather than demands submission. It seeks understanding rather than humiliation. Speaking truth with grace also means being willing to listen. Love does not assume complete understanding. It asks questions. It seeks clarity. It acknowledges that our perspective may be limited. Humility keeps truth from becoming arrogance. When both parties approach a conversation with this posture, disagreements can become opportunities for deeper connection rather than permanent division. Of course, not every truth spoken graciously will be received graciously. Some will resist correction regardless of tone. Yet our responsibility lies not in controlling the outcome, but in stewarding our own spirit. We cannot force acceptance, but we can refuse to let bitterness shape our delivery. There is discipline in this. It requires pausing before reacting, praying before responding, reflecting before rebuking. It means surrendering the impulse to dominate and embracing the desire to serve. For truth spoken in love serves the other person's good. It aims at restoration, not victory. It desires healing, not humiliation. Over time, practicing this kind of communication reshapes relationships. Trust deepens because honesty is no longer feared. Correction is not interpreted as rejection but as care. The atmosphere changes from defensive to receptive. Such environments do not form by accident. They are cultivated through repeated choices to pair clarity with compassion. The world may applaud sharp wit and cutting remarks, but heaven delights in words that carry both conviction and kindness. To speak truth with grace is to reflect the character of a God who is perfectly just and perfectly merciful. It is to resist the temptation to simplify complex people into single failures. It is to believe that change is possible and to communicate in a way that supports that belief. In the end, love that speaks truth gently does more than correct behavior. It protects relationship. It refuses to sacrifice connection on the altar of being right. It remembers that people are not projects to be fixed, but souls to be cherished. And in holding truth and grace together, we participate in a form of strength that is both firm and tender, both courageous and compassionate, both unwavering and kind. There is a quiet paradox at the center of the spiritual life. When we cling tightly to ourselves, we feel anxious and restless, but when we surrender ourselves, we begin to taste freedom. The world tells us that fulfillment comes from self-assertion, from defending our rights, from ensuring that our voice is always heard and our preferences always honored. We are encouraged to build an identity carefully protected from inconvenience and criticism. Yet the more fiercely we guard our ego, the more fragile we become. A single insult unsettles us. A small failure feels devastating. A lack of recognition breeds resentment. This is because a life centered on self is a life constantly under threat. Self-denial, at first glance, appears to be the opposite of freedom. It sounds restrictive, even oppressive. Why should we deny our desires? Why should we resist the impulse to defend our pride? Why should we choose the lower place when we could demand the higher one? These questions seem reasonable until we notice how exhausting it is to live in constant self-protection. To die to pride is not to erase personality or suppress healthy desires. It is to loosen the grip of ego over every situation. When we no longer need to be the most admired person in the room, we can finally listen. When we no longer need to win every argument, we can finally learn. When we no longer need to control every outcome, we can finally rest. This is the surprising doorway into freedom. The life of Jesus Christ offers a profound picture of this mystery. He did not cling to status or demand constant validation. Though he possessed authority, he expressed it through service. Though misunderstood, he did not scramble to defend his reputation at every turn. There was an inner steadiness that did not depend on public approval. The steadiness flowed from complete surrender to the Father's will. Self-denial, then, is not self-hatred. It is self-placement under a greater love and wisdom. It is saying, my perspective is limited, but God's is not. My desires fluctuate, but his purposes endure. In relinquishing the illusion of control, we step into trust, and trust relieves us of the burden of being our own ultimate protector. Consider how pride operates in ordinary moments. Someone corrects us, and immediately we feel the urge to justify ourselves. Someone else receives praise, and comparison quietly awakens. A plan changes unexpectedly, and frustration rises because our preferences were disrupted. None of these reactions seem dramatic, yet they reveal how tightly we hold to self. Each moment presents a choice to defend ego or to surrender it. Choosing surrender does not mean pretending we were never hurt or that our ideas do not matter. It means we are not enslaved by the need to prove ourselves constantly. When we let go of that need, peace enters. There is remarkable liberty in being able to say, I may be wrong, without feeling diminished. There is deep strength in being overlooked without becoming bitter. There is quiet joy in serving anonymously without craving recognition. These are not signs of weakness, they are signs of a heart no longer governed by insecurity. Self-denial dismantles the tyranny of self-obsession. It frees mental space once occupied by comparison and competition. It releases emotional energy previously spent on guarding image. It opens the soul to gratitude because life is no longer measured by how well it elevates us. Instead, it is received as gift. Of course, this path is not comfortable. Ego resists surrender fiercely. Pride whispers that if we do not assert ourselves, we will disappear. Yet the opposite proves true. When we surrender pride, our true self emerges more clearly. We become less reactive, more compassionate, less defensive, more teachable. Our identity stabilizes because it is no longer constructed from fragile achievements or shifting opinions. Self-denial also deepens relationships. When two people insist on always being right, connection fractures. When at least one chooses humility, tension softens, apologies become possible, reconciliation becomes realistic, community flourishes where ego loosens its grip. This does not mean abandoning boundaries or tolerating injustice. It means that even when we stand firm, we do so without arrogance. We correct without contempt. We assert without hostility. Freedom is found not in dominating others, but in mastering ourselves. The one who cannot yield is not powerful. He is captive to pride. The one who can step back, listen, and choose humility demonstrates far greater strength. Over time, repeated acts of self-denial reshape character. They cultivate patience in place of impulsiveness. They nurture empathy instead of self-centeredness. They anchor us in something steadier than shifting emotion. We begin to experience an internal spaciousness, a lightness of spirit. We are less easily provoked, less easily discouraged, less easily inflated by praise. This steadiness is the fruit of surrender. In the end, self-denial leads not to a diminished life, but to an enlarged one. By releasing the exhausting project of constant self-exaltation, we discover the joy of participating in something greater than ourselves. We learn that true freedom is not the right to do whatever ego demands, but the ability to choose what is good even when ego protests. And in that choosing, again and again, we step into the strange and beautiful liberty that only surrender can bring. The world has a particular way of measuring greatness. It counts followers, applause, titles, wealth, and influence. It places the successful on visible platforms and assumes that prominence equals importance. From childhood, we are subtly trained to chase recognition. We learn to celebrate the loudest voice, the strongest personality, the most impressive achievements. In such an atmosphere, it is easy to believe that what is unseen does not matter, that quiet faithfulness is insignificant, but hidden obedience carries little weight. Yet heaven measures differently. What appears small to human eyes may carry eternal significance. What seems unimpressive in public may be radiant in the presence of God. This reversal unsettles our instincts because it challenges the scale by which we have learned to judge ourselves and others. We are tempted to think that if no one notices our effort, it must not be valuable. But divine evaluation is not based on visibility. It is based on faithfulness. Consider how much of life's most essential work happens away from applause. A parent rising early to prepare for the day. A worker choosing integrity when dishonesty would bring quick gain. A friend offering patient presence to someone who is struggling. These moments rarely make headlines. Yet they shape souls, they cultivate character, they build invisible foundations that hold families and communities together. In the life of Jesus Christ, we observe a striking indifference to public spectacle. Though crowds gathered, he often withdrew to quiet places. Though he performed miracles, he frequently instructed recipients not to broadcast them. His focus was not on building an image, but on fulfilling a calling. This reveals something profound about divine greatness. It is rooted in obedience rather than display. The temptation to seek human praise is subtle. Even good deeds can become distorted if performed primarily for recognition. When applause becomes the reward we crave, service loses its purity. We begin to calculate which actions will enhance our reputation. We may still do good things, but our motivation shifts. Heaven, however, looks beyond the action to the heart. It sees whether generosity flows from love or from a desire to impress. It weighs intention alongside outcome. This should not discourage us. It should liberate us. If greatness were measured by public influence alone, many would be excluded. But if greatness is measured by quiet faithfulness, then every person has the opportunity to live significantly. The smallest act done with sincerity carries weight. A whispered prayer matters. A restrained word in a heated moment matters. A choice to remain honest when dishonesty would go unnoticed matters. These decisions may never trend or be celebrated, yet they echo in eternity. There is also protection in heaven's way of measuring. Public recognition can inflate ego and create fragile identities dependent on approval. When we define ourselves by applause, criticism devastates us. But when we understand that God sees in secret and values what is hidden, we are free from the tyranny of constant performance. We no longer need to curate our lives for admiration. We can serve simply because it is right. This hiddenness is not obscurity in the negative sense, it is sacredness. It means that our worth is not determined by how many are watching. It is anchored in the gaze of a faithful God who sees fully and judges justly. Over time, embracing heaven's measurement reshapes ambition. We may still pursue excellence, but not for vanity. We may still accept leadership, but not for self-exaltation. We learn to value depth over display, integrity over image. We recognize that a single act of genuine kindness may outweigh 1,000 public gestures performed for attention. This perspective also transforms how we view others. Instead of admiring only the prominent, we begin to honor the faithful. We notice the consistent worker, the devoted caregiver, the steady friend. We realize that greatness often wears ordinary clothing. It hides in kitchens, offices, classrooms, and quiet corners where no spotlight reaches. Such recognition cultivates humility because we understand that true worth cannot be fully measured by human scales. There will be a day when hidden things are revealed, when motives are uncovered, when quiet sacrifices are acknowledged. What was overlooked on earth will not be overlooked forever. This promise steadies the heart when effort feels unseen. It reminds us that no act of love is wasted. Even when results are not immediate, faithfulness is forming something eternal within us. The world may continue to chase visibility, to equate noise with significance. But those who grasp heaven's measure can live differently. They can work diligently without demanding praise. They can give generously without announcing it. They can endure quietly without resentment. In doing so, they participate in a deeper understanding of greatness, one defined not by how brightly we shine before others, but by how faithfully we reflect the character of God in both public and private moments. There is a kind of love that keeps a careful distance, calculating every risk, protecting itself from disappointment, ensuring that it never gives more than it receives. This love feels wise by the world's standards. It avoids vulnerability. It withholds trust until guarantees are provided. It offers kindness only where kindness is likely to be returned. On the surface, such love appears safe and sensible. Yet beneath that safety lies a quiet emptiness. For love that never risks pain never fully becomes love at all. It becomes negotiation. It becomes strategy. It becomes self-preservation disguised as affection. The strange love that reflects the heart of God is different. It does not act recklessly, but neither does it demand certainty before it gives. It understands that to love deeply is to become vulnerable. It accepts that wounds are possible, and still it chooses to give itself. When we look at the life of Jesus Christ, we see love that stepped directly into rejection, misunderstanding, and suffering. He did not shield himself from the cost of caring. He entered human brokenness knowing the risk, yet he did not withdraw. This reveals something essential. Sacred love is courageous. Love. It does not deny the possibility of pain. It embraces the possibility of redemption. Many of us hesitate at this point. We have been hurt before. We have trusted and been betrayed. We have opened our hearts and found them mishandled. The instinct to retreat is understandable. Self-protection promises relief. If we care less, perhaps we will hurt less. If we invest cautiously, perhaps we will avoid disappointment. But in guarding ourselves too tightly, we shrink our capacity for joy as well. A heart that refuses pain often refuses intimacy. It remains untouched, but also unfulfilled. Love that risks pain is not foolish optimism. It is not blind to human weakness. Rather, it acknowledges that relationships are imperfect because people are imperfect. It chooses to engage anyway, not because harm is unlikely, but because love is worth the cost. This kind of love requires discernment. It does not ignore patterns of abuse or excuse destructive behavior. Boundaries are not enemies of love, they are often its protectors. Yet even when boundaries are set, the heart can remain soft rather than hardened. We may step back from harmful situations, but we do not need to step into hatred. Sacred love maintains compassion even when distance becomes necessary. This balance is difficult. It demands both wisdom and mercy. To risk pain in love is to surrender control over outcome. We cannot guarantee that our kindness will be appreciated. We cannot ensure that our loyalty will be matched. We cannot predict how others will respond to our vulnerability. This uncertainty is frightening because it exposes our limits, yet it also teaches trust. It reminds us that we are not sovereign over every result. We are responsible for our faithfulness, not for others' reactions. In releasing control, we discover a deeper stability rooted not in human reliability, but in divine faithfulness. Over time, courageous love reshapes character. It trains us to endure discomfort without becoming resentful. It strengthens patience when growth in others seems slow. It refines motives, revealing whether we love for reward or for the sake of love itself. When love is tested by pain and still chooses to remain kind, it matures. It becomes less sentimental and more steadfast. This maturity does not make us cold, it makes us resilient. We learn that hurt does not have to harden us. We learn that disappointment does not have to divide us. There is also a profound beauty in love that risks. It mirrors the generosity of a God who gives without coercion, who offers grace without forcing acceptance. Divine love does not manipulate, it invites. It opens itself to rejection and yet continues to extend mercy. When we love in this way, however imperfectly, we reflect something eternal. The world may call such love naive. It may argue that self-protection is the wiser path, but a life built entirely on caution can become small and isolated. A life willing to risk for the sake of love may encounter wounds, yet it also encounters depth, connection, and transformation. The pain that comes from loving well is different from the pain that comes from selfish striving. One diminishes the soul, the other expands it. Sacred love understands that to avoid all suffering would require avoiding all meaningful attachment, and such avoidance would cost far more than the suffering itself. In the end, love that risks pain is not reckless, it is faithful. It is willing to be misunderstood, willing to be inconvenienced, willing even to be wounded, if that is the price of genuine connection. It does not seek suffering, but neither does it flee at the first sign of difficulty. It stands, steady and hopeful, believing that even in brokenness God can work redemption. And in choosing this courageous path, we participate in a love that is not merely human affection, but a reflection of something holy, enduring, and infinitely strong. And so, as we walk through a world that often misunderstands love, let us remember that the love God approves is not always popular, not always safe, and not always easy. It is strange in the eyes of the world, yet beautiful and powerful in the eyes of heaven. It forgives when vengeance tempts. It serves when recognition is absent. It speaks truth with grace. It surrenders pride for freedom. It remains faithful in hidden ways, and it risks pain to reflect God's heart. Choose this love, and you will not only transform your own heart, but you will leave ripples of hope, mercy, and grace in the lives of those around you. For what seems weak to the world is, in truth, the strongest force there is, and what appears hidden is the very work that eternity treasures. Let your life be a testimony to this strange love, and in doing so, let heaven smile upon you.